Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live. Let me tell you, the dopamine, it's flowing.
I am damn excited. Damn excited.
We are so excited to be joining you guys tonight.
Oh!
Well, how you doing, man? Patrick.
Will, Sterling.
Yeah.
Super Bowl champion, two-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Oh, he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score! And we'll see you next week, but until then, as always, go Chiefs.
Welcome into a live edition of the Intangibles. Happy Monday. I am Carter. Christian Ainsworth will be joining me shortly as he's kind of struggling with some technical difficulties, but it is great to talk to you all after what was a very encouraging preseason outing. For the last time, we will see our Kansas City Chiefs. Next time we see them, they will be taking the field in Sao Paulo, Brazil, with all the starters and the games, they start to count. Speaking of counting, we would love for you guys to count on us here at Arrowhead Addict for your Chiefs coverage all season long, whether it be our awesome written work over on the website with Matt, Connor, myself, and many other talented writers, or here on the YouTube channel. We are our community. It just keeps growing. Become a member of the Arrowhead Addict podcast. Right now, I posted screenshots of our big fantasy football draft that we're doing, and people are like, hey, how do I get in this? Well, you got to be in the Discord to get in the fantasy football draft. I will warn you, you might not want to get into it after you see my team, because it's absolutely stacked. Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, and Drake London. Those are my first three picks. The rest doesn't really matter, honestly. I'm stacking W's there. And speaking of W's, we saw a lot of really good things from the Kansas City Chiefs on the field against the Chicago Bears Friday night. And one thing that you got to kind of admire there is that the Bears, they come out, they play their starters against the Chiefs. So we get a real good look at like how this team would actually look if this was a real game. Keeping in mind that there's not a lot of game planning that goes on, which I think if you're a Chiefs fan, you're probably happy to hear that, because if that game was starters versus starters for the whole time, I think it might have ended 33-7 or something. Like, it was an ass kicking from the beginning. I was very, very pleased with a lot of what I saw from not only the Chiefs offense, but the Chiefs defense. So we'll get Christian's impressions on that. Real quick, we'll get to a little bit of news, and that is the Chiefs bringing back Derek Nnadi from the New York Jets. Nnadi has basically been a career Chief since he was drafted. He was a part of Brett Veach's very first draft class, and he has basically been coming back on a string of one-year deals year after year. I will say, for me personally, I was pretty happy that Derek Nnadi was allowed to go to the Jets. I thought he was just kind of a symbol of this team settling for the same players at the same position, particularly because the Chiefs, they have really failed to invest in defensive tackle outside of Chris Jones. Certainly, they have a huge cap investment in him, but we've not seen them spend high-quality draft picks, and particularly in that run-stuffing area. We've not seen them really go and invest a ton into that pick. Well, now we are here where we are. One of the reasons why I think Derek Nnadi is back is I think that the Chiefs were hoping, they bring in Jerry Tillery, another floor raiser, can do some different things where he can play some edge, a little bit more versatile than a Derek Nnadi, much different style player. And I think they were hoping for one of a Keziah Izzard or Fabian Lovett to step up into this role and one of those UDFAs to kind of take over that job. And instead, Christian, good to see you. Instead, they get this thing where basically neither one of those guys takes over the job. But the one reason I will say, like, what's changed my tune about being okay with Derek Nnadi coming back to Kansas City is now the fact that the Chiefs, they spent a top 100 pick, a top 65 pick on a defensive tackle and Omar Norman Lott. And I'm not sure I love all the process of what they're doing with Lott, but at least they've put something into that position. So Nnadi's a floor raiser. I would expect him to make the roster. Christian, what are your thoughts about the Derek Nnadi trade?
So part of it is really, really good. And I agree with what you said. Like, it's really nice to have somebody in the room that can kind of take over what they were trying to have Omar Norman Lott do during the preseason, which is like that nose tackle, one tech, run stopping guy. I think part of that was just kind of a test out by the defensive staff. Like, hey, can this guy do this? But I think part of it was also, let's see if we can kind of cut some cap here. We just talked about moving forward and rolling over as much of the cap as he can. I think this is a misstep by Veach, though. And there's a few reasons why I think this, but you look at what he did with Sky Moore, where he's got this wide receiver who he trades to the 49ers. Everybody thought it was a savvy exchange, right? Like we give him in a 7th for a 6th round pick. And then he comes right back and he goes, okay, well, we'll trade you a 6th for a 7th and we want Derek Nnadi to the Jets. In my opinion, this could have all been solved, before all of this nonsense goes down and you go, hey, we're going to keep Derek Nnadi or, pay him whatever he wants to in free agency. And then Sky Moore will kick you off. I mean, the savings are about the same. It's not like you're paying Derek Nnadi a bunch of money to stay in Kansas City. But I do think when you look at it, it's like a zero-sum game. It's like we didn't lose anything, but we didn't gain anything either, which I think, a lot of people are pissed off about on Twitter.
He's going to play. He played 20% of the snaps last year. This is not some guy who's coming in and playing a massive amount of snaps. Mike Pennell is older. Chris Jones is older. You also want some insurance there along defensive tackle. And Omar Norman-Lott's a rookie, and Jerry Tillery generated 0 sacks last year. So, this just raises the floor. You essentially traded Sky Moore for Derek Nnadi. I think everyone would have taken that, just the notion that you could trade Sky Moore for anything. So, I think there's zero reason to lose any sleep about it. And again, you're just raising the floor of the room as a whole. And I think that's probably what makes best. I would like to bring our attention to the comment in the chat here, which might be the quintessential Eagles fan interaction, which is us talking about a nitty gritty third string defensive tackle that's going to play 20% of the snaps. And then an Eagle fan pops in the chat and says, "Fly Eagles fly, no three-peat, Super Bowl 59 champions." That's perfect. Us talking, having a rational conversation and them just bursting into the room, screaming the same thing they've been screaming ever since. Congrats on stopping the three-peat. Thanks for helping us win back-to-back Super Bowls. Congrats, your franchise has won 2. And more importantly, congrats to you, who apparently is either unemployed or I'm not sure what you're doing, that you're in the middle of a Chiefs chat in the middle of 1 p.m. on a Monday. But congrats to you.
Let's be honest. He's hammered. It's Philadelphia. There's nothing else to do. He's hammered at 2:10 p.m. on a Monday. And that's what Philly fans are doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everyone's got to find a way to get that check. So whatever floats your boat. But we will go on to have a rational football conversation instead of just tweeting the same things over and over again all the time. Moving on. Let's get to the preseason. Actually, you know what? We need to talk about our friends real quick over at Underdog Fantasy. Football, it is back. Oh my gosh. I've got my windows open in my house right now. It feels like football weather, and Underdog is the best place to make picks and win money all season long. Playing on Underdog, it's super easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like touchdowns, receiving yards, interceptions, and many more. This week on Underdog, you already know what I'm looking at. I will be out at Arrowhead on Thursday night watching Dylan Raiola and the Nebraska Cornhuskers beat up on those Cincinnati Bearcats. So I'm taking the 2 over on Dylan Raiola's passing yards, 244.5. This is a Big 12 defense going up against a Big 10 offense. I really like what I've seen from Raiola. And this one, if I was going to hand out a lock, I'm telling you, Emmett Johnson over half a rushing TD. He is the RB1 there. He's put on a ton of muscle this offseason. I'm really excited about him. I think we could be talking about him here in April, Emmett Johnson. But check those picks out and many more on Underdog Fantasy. You might as well watch that game. It's going to be in Kansas City. I guarantee the Kelsey brothers are going to be there. The Bussin' with the Boys are going to be there because I got a big bet on it. I wouldn't be surprised if Mahomes is there since him and Raiola are so close. So check that game out and everything else to check out on Underdog. Download the app today and sign up with our promo code Arrowhead Addict to score $50. That's Arrowhead Addict, all one word, and you can get $50 in bonus funds when you place $5 of a bet. That's our promo code Arrowhead Addict. Must be 18 years or older to play, 19 plus in Alabama, Nebraska, and Colorado in some games, 21 plus and older in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Term apply. See their website for more details, or in New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369. A little rusty little rusty on those. Good.
Hey,
Well,
nobody's
there's
gonna
like
blame you,
yeah,
Price.
yeah,
That was a word salad. And then you started
Hey.
talking about Nebraska. I could see how you got off track.
Hey, that was like my one chance to really plug that in. But I am very excited to be back in Arrowhead, watching a quarterback with the number 15 beat up on a team from Cincinnati. So,
oh yeah, well, dude, and it's gonna be cool. Like Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce have a legitimate shot of being in that building for that college football game.
yeah, it'll be cool. They'll go crazy when they show them up on the bulletin board for sure. And then hopefully we get Jason Kelce with Bills Mafia moment, and like
Dude,
shirtless jumping. Dude, I've never seen something more athletic than when he jumped down. Like that's just like, oh no, he's not some chunky guy. This is like a legit 1% athlete. Watching him jump out of that window to the Bills fans. Impressive.
Oh yeah, dude. Well, and you got to think too. Like he cut weight after playing. He was already like one of the most athletic centers of all time, and he's like, "Oh, let me drop 30 pounds and see how much more athletic I can get." Like, yeah, he's a superhuman.
Well, okay, so we talked about Derek Nnadi. Now let's talk about the preseason game. Obviously, you can catch our post-game show, which I was on along with Adam Best and Patrick Allen. But we've had a little bit more time to review the All-22. I know I've uploaded several clips on my timeline. You can check those out on Twitter. We've had this moment breathe for a little bit. So let's find 3 things here that actually matter from this game. And for me, I can't start anywhere else than what we saw from the first team offense. I am just absolutely shocked by how much improved the protection looked, particularly. Most importantly, Kingsley Suamataia. Patrick Mahomes in this game basically was flawless. He had 3 drops. He was on pace to throw for like 185 yards in the first half or more. And he did that without Hollywood Brown and without Jalen Royals too. Like those are guys that are going to factor into this offense. And for the first time, and I know, let's do all the things you say before, like it's preseason, we know. But for him to be, I haven't seen that offense look like that since 2022. Where it's just like, oh my gosh, it's everywhere. Like you're hitting go routes to Tyquan Thornton. They're designing stuff for Brashard Smith. Like Noah Gray didn't get a catch in this game, and he's pretty good too. Like, and you saw what you saw from Worthy and Rice. There was just so much encouraging things, but most importantly from the offense is the protection. If Patrick Mahomes can be kept clean like he was in that game, the sky is the limit for this offense.
Oh, 100%. And talking about Kingsley, maybe had 2 quick losses the entire night, which if you look at his past couple preseason games, that's like the completely different player. Like we were looking at him, talking about him. Is he going to be good enough to be the starter at left guard? He was presumed to be, but with Jalen Moore working in, there were still some questions, but he looked fantastic. Shout out to Noah Gray though, who I think played an incredible game as well. He was open all the time. Like that goal line stand or goal line play that we had where Rashee Rice caught that back shoulder fade. That whole sequence, he was open the entire time. And when you're looking at guys and looking at how the Andy Reid offense works, it's like, hey, Patrick needs time so he can throw downfield and let the routes develop. But when that happens, that opens up the middle of the field. And that's why Travis Kelce looked better than ever. That's why Noah Gray was open all the time. And that's without Hollywood Brown too, which is, going to be another guy who can step in. And as much as we love Tyquan Thornton, I think Hollywood Brown is going to be a bigger impact than he is on offense. So sky is the limit, dude. Like this could be, I know we're talking about a Bears team, but and beating up on Chicago, but I mean, that was a pretty good defense last year as well. Like I think they held teams to 21 points throughout the regular season per game. It's like top 10 in the league. That's a good defense that they carved up.
Yeah, and that defensive line, they've put some serious investments into it. Josh Simmons was facing Dayo Adebangbo, which he got about $15 million in free agency. Jawan Taylor's going up on the other side against Montez Sweat. They bring in Grady Jarrett on the interior. They got Gervon Dexter. Like there's some real players on that defensive line. A lot of people think highly of that defense, and they look like Swiss cheese. And I think the thing that I love the most is you think about Patrick Mahomes when he's the best. Not only is it about time, but it's about space to create. And we saw some of those signature 10-step drops, the creating out of context. And when the plays break down, Juju had a nice catch. Kareem Hunt could have had a nice catch for a touchdown. I mean, he was just flawless. And the protection is really like the thing that makes me feel different about this from last year, because we've often asked the question, how is this different than last year with Kingsley Suamataia? It's the number of people like a Brandon Thorne, like a Jeff Schwartz, like a Kyle Long, who is getting on Twitter and posting clips of Josh Simmons being like, this is incredibly hard to do, and he does it flawlessly. Like at the goal line, the Pacheco touchdown with the reach block, where he's getting across the face of the guard and getting his hands and pushing and clearing space out for the guy who was lined up shaded over Creed Humphrey. So he's clearing 2 gaps of space on a run block there. And the run blocking was a nice sign for him too, because he was all right as a run blocker, might have even struggled a little bit. The pass protection was great, but the movement skills are so encouraging. And yeah, like I think if you're looking at the 100 percentile outcome for this offense, it looks like it did there, where it's like, oh my God, they have so many ways to get us. And I thought Pacheco looked a little bit better. In the run game, them actively designing things behind Kingsley Suamataia, who is a plus run blocker right now. And I think that is his upside as an athlete. Like, I think there's a good chance that this is the best run blocking line they've had since 2022, back when Orlando Brown was on the left side and they had Tooney and Creed and Trey.
Oh, 100%. And it was also really cool to see Brashard Smith. That was another guy that I had on my list here. Dude, he looked fantastic. He got reps with the first team offense. Like, talk about ways to beat you, dude. Yeah. Having a guy out of the backfield like that is incredible.
Talk about it's so over, we are so back. I mean,
yeah, oh my God.
I was talking to our buddy Mike Tallis about it, because he's one of those weirdos that has like 35 fantasy football teams. And I was like, he's got like, I've got like 22% Brashard Smith exposure. And I was like, buddy, I'm not sure. Like, I'm scared he might not make the roster the way things are going. And then he's just coming out here getting design plays with the ones. And either way, the drop is disappointing. It was a tough catch, but seeing the burst and like how open he was just cooking linebackers, that is something that, like, I feel like he's not a guy you're going to want to own in fantasy. Maybe your best ball draft if you're into that stuff. I'm not. But he's a guy that like could just be the straw that broke the camel's back. That's just like, oh my God, we had to cover everyone, and then this guy just cooked our middle linebacker or whatever. So very exciting things from the offense. My second thing that I thought really stood out to me was I was pretty pleased with what I saw from the defense, particularly the first 3rd down and long that the Bears get themselves into because they cannot execute a normal offense for some reason. They fumble the ball and then they get stuffed on a run. It's 3rd and long. And we see Trent McDuffie in the slot, Christian Fulton, and Jalen Watson outside. Jalen Watson had Rome Odunze checked out of that game. Okay, Rome Odunze was still back at the hotel as long as Jalen Watson was in there. He finally started doing things once the second teamers got in there. But Fulton looked a little rusty. That's to be expected. This is the exact same thing that happened with Jalen Watson last preseason, where he played extended time in the preseason because of coming back from an injury. But I still see what I see from Fulton. I posted a nice snap of him just absolutely cooking his block. It's a outside swing screen and or swing pass where the wide receiver goes around the slot receiver, and he just destroys his block, brings him back, drops him down in the backfield. It reminded me a lot of what we've seen from a Charvarius Ward or a L'Jarius Sneed. So I know that the health will always be a concern with him, but man, I'm very excited about the upside of those 3 guys playing together.
Oh, dude. And if you have Christian Fulton playing like that, and I tweeted this when I saw it, and Ashton Gelati doing what he was doing on the defensive line, my God, dude. Like, there was a player a few years ago, Lucas Van Ness, who ended up getting drafted by the Green Bay Packers, who was just a stud, like just bullying people off the line. There was at one point Ashton Gelati looked like a better version of him. And that's a 1st round defensive end that plays for Green Bay, so you know he's a badass. And he's just bullying kids, throwing them around. He tackled 3 people at one point. I mean, dude, those 2 players coming in is an insane upgrade to the defense that was already incredible.
Again, going back to what is different, like how is this different than Felix Anudike-Uzomah? I don't remember seeing splashes like that from FAU this early in the going. And the thing that I think is encouraging about Gelati, it's like motor, power, speed, check. Football intelligence, not quite able to check that box yet, because I think there are times that you see him thinking and hesitating. In the NFL, if you hesitate, you lose. But if he has all those other checks, we can get the cerebral part where, like, because there, you even saw that one play where he tackled the guy. He hesitated for a second because he got through so quickly. He's like, wait, is this a screen? Oh, wait, no, it's not. And then he goes and gets him. So I definitely think that there is a path for him to be a contributor, more of a contributor than FAU was in his rookie year. And, you know, you're just banking on, I think, talking about this pass rush is something that needed to improve from this year, last year. I think you're counting on getting more from Chris Jones than you got last year. Karlaftis, if he can just be basically the same player he's been the last couple of years, a healthier version of the Minahu, and then getting more from Gelati. And then, hey, if you just get your couple of sacks from a corner or safety, a Nnadi, Omar Norman Lott, like that's where it's going to get better. I still don't see, like, the year that they, in 2023, they were second in the league in sacks. I'm not sure I see that pass rush upside here, because I think almost all the guys they have are more coverage sack guys besides Chris Jones. But maybe we get a little bit more.
How do you feel about Omar Norman Lott, though? I think he showed some things.
Yeah, they showed him like turn into a bowling ball. I mean, it's not his fault what they wanted to, but like his ability to win in 3 seconds or less, I've not seen that yet. Like all the things I loved about him coming out of Tennessee, they're like, hey, we're going to change that. And again, they've deserved the benefit of the doubt because they did that with Rashee Rice. They completely changed his game and it really worked out. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt there, but I'm not. When all of my analysis about Omar Norman Lott after the Chiefs picked him is he just needs to come in and be a kick-ass pass rusher because he's not going to be great against the run. He didn't play a lot of snaps at Tennessee, but if he can come in and be that, that's exciting. Then you've got this real NASCAR package next to Chris Jones, and they're like, hey, nope, we're not doing that. We're going to try to play him as more of a traditional one tech and have him put on weight. So whatever, it's fine. They get paid the big bucks. I do not. So good for them.
Well,
we'll see.
I think also the ankle injury kind of hampered him a little bit too. I think that's taken a bigger toll than people are giving it credit for.
It's
but
very clearly
I think
a nagging
yes. I don't know if he's going to get over it this season, but I think some time off will definitely be good for him. Dude, I really think that the ceiling for this pass rush is much higher than what you're talking about. Ashton Gelati, I mean, he's not the most refined pass rusher, but I think with that power, you've Chris Jones, Omar Norman Lott, if he can get over this ankle thing, and then George Karlaftis and maybe Leo Chanel blitzing, like, dude, that is a heavy hand to deal any offensive line, and especially the not necessarily gauntlet of offensive lines that the Chiefs are going to face this year. Like, AFC West is going to be a little difficult. I think that, you look at, although Chargers just got a little bit easier now that I'm thinking about it. Chargers aren't going to be fantastic. Raiders, I don't think will be fantastic. Broncos, I mean, that's 6 games right there that you're going to, or 4 games right there that you're going to play where you're going against a subpar offensive line. So, I mean, I think there's a real shot we get close to that production. I don't think it'll be insane by any means, but definitely much higher than in years past.
What's your final takeaway from this preseason game? Something that you think actually matters when they take the field in Brazil?
I'm going to say wide receiver depth. And you talked about it a little bit. We alluded to it in your first point that mattered the most from the preseason game 3, but I just think that this wide receiver room is so much deeper than we've seen even in the past half decade, where, Juju Smith-Schuster is the second fiddle to Rashee Rice, or, Hollywood Brown is injured. We have all these injuries in the wide receiver room. I just think that when your worst guy is Nico Remigio, who's a special teams god, and the next guy up from that is Tyquan Thornton, who we just saw catch a 50-yard bomb, has been tearing up guys like Trent McDuffie in camp. It's just like, dude, this might be the best offense Mahomes has played with top to bottom. And you look back at that 2018 team whenever we were just throwing it all over the place, and I think it was that was his 5,050 touchdown season. You had guys like Sammy Watkins, but the next guy down was Demarcus Robinson. And I think that just with this whole, the ceiling for those players might not be as high. Like, I don't think there's a Tyreek Hill on this team. And obviously Travis Kelce's a little bit worse than he was back then. But then you look at the number 2, the number 3, wide receiver, tight end. Those are both positions where you get one upgrade. It upgrades 2 positions, right? Because those guys are going up against the second best or the third best defensive back or linebacker. I just think this team is so deep. There's just so many ways to beat you. And if everybody's healthy, man, this offense could be lethal.
Yeah. Our friends here at Chiefs Blitz, they said in the chat, even Bob Tunyon didn't get a catch. And I mean, look, I never thought we'd be sitting here talking about Robert Tunyon and Tyquan Thornton, like being a part of the weapons conversation. But from what we've seen, everything in the preseason, like, I think there's a reason to say, like, again, I will not be shocked if we're sitting here talking about Tyquan Thornton or Robert Tunyon making a big play week 1, and everyone's just like, wow, where do these guys come from? Those type of things. One thing I'll add to the offense, like Gary here in the chat, he asked about picking up a running back before the season starts. it's very clear that they've been sniffing around running backs. Diana Rossini reported that. I continue to think that if they're bringing in a running back, it's either going to be one or two things. It's going to be like a classic, like a Latavius Murray, a guy like that who is like a seasoned vet who, like, look, we can just bring him in on passing downs, because I think Kareem Hunt can do that, but we've also already seen some of those limitations for him as a passing down back, and just knowing that Brashard Smith isn't ready to take that role on all the way. Or it's Isaac Garindo or someone like that, like someone that they liked in the draft who's got upside. I do not think it's going to be a Breece Hall or a Travis Etienne or something like that. Like, I know a lot of people have speculated about that. One, I think that they want to roll some of that cap space over that they have to the next year. And I think also, I think Pacheco's looked pretty good this preseason. And I think you go back 2 years. The Chiefs just beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl. You were very high on Isaiah Pacheco. Same with the Super Bowl against the 49ers. All those things, like, I think if you can count on Pacheco to be closer to what he was previous years, you can feel a lot better about that. So I'll be surprised if there's a big move. I wouldn't be surprised if there is a move, because right now, and we'll get into our roster predictions here in a second, but I'm not sure I have either Carson Steele or Elijah Mitchell making the roster.
Oh, 100. Like, that's the biggest question mark on the roster now. It's not, is Sky Moore going to make it? It's not the offensive line. I think it's the running back room. Cam Akers was just released today.
Yeah,
I think
he's one of those names that's just like, hey, this is just a floor raiser type of thing. I feel like he has been in so many of the Shanahan systems that I don't know how he would translate, but he's also getting released from the Saints, which, like, they also employ Clyde Edwards-Helaire, so maybe that's not a good sign.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they're that desperate for running back help and Cam Akers didn't make it, I don't know if he'll do a whole lot for us, but it's obvious that Elijah Mitchell hasn't done much. I don't know what has happened, like, off the field for him, but it seems like there's been a major change in how we're talking about him via, since after camp or before camp started. Just a complete narrative shift for that guy.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. I don't know if you had the privilege of seeing some interactions I had with people on Friday before the game on Twitter. I feel like I am losing my mind here. There was a post, something along the lines of, if the Chiefs offense isn't elite this year, we need to have a conversation about Andy Reid. And I quoted it and said, some of you were not alive for 2012, and it really shows. And, basically the rest of the day was people arguing with me about that like, oh, he's got an elite quarterback and they're wasting him, and Andy Reid should be able to generate this. Andy just bails out, or Pat just bails out Andy all the time. And it's this really annoying thing that happens where, like, I talk about, like, hey, like, I feel like the coach that is leading the current NFL dynasty is pretty good at his job. People are like, well, he's carried by Mahomes and Spags. And I was like, wait. You just said Steve Spagnuolo. Do you know who hired Steve Spagnuolo? Yeah, Andy freaking Reid. He brought him in. He's the head coach. If his special teams is really good, that's his thing. It's all his thing. No. That's Brett Veach and the personnel. He hired Brett Veach. Brett Veach is his right-hand man. Andy Reid had personnel control in Philadelphia, and he has partial personnel control here in Kansas City. I believe that to be like 100% true. If you don't think that's true, you're just lying to yourself. What are we doing here?
Oh, dude, I have no idea. Are you kidding? I honestly, when you started this, I kind of thought you were joking. People think Andy Reid is on the hot seat.
Go look at my tweets, man. Like, do I think that any of them would agree that he should be fired? No, but I think that their argument's probably closer to, like, he's past his prime. He needs to innovate. He needs to be different. Those type of things. It's like, oh God, if he could be like Mike McDaniel and have his offense just totally collapse. Like, I think everyone gets so hot and steamy for offenses. Like right now, the Kevin O'Connell, right? Everyone is so hot and steamy over his offense. Everyone wants the new thing, right? Like, it's like stock market, right? You got your blue chips, your Walmarts, your Nvidia, those type of stocks. Those are boring. They don't fluctuate a lot. Everyone wants to find the next Nvidia. Everyone wants to find the next Zoom, like whenever Zoom exploded during 2020. So everyone's like, well, Andy Reid's that blue chip stock. It's boring. It's boring. Oh, he goes to the Super Bowl every year. How boring. But Kevin O'Connell, he got a lot out of the Pasternaut whenever he was in there. And oh man, he made Sam Darnold look good. Like, it's almost like people they're just tired of it. They're just bored of it. But I do want to ask you this question. Okay. So taking all those people's idiotic analysis out, like seriously, those people who think that, you need to go be a fan of a different team. Okay. You need to know what it's like to be eliminated from the playoffs in October, which like,
Oh, dude, here, I'll do you one better. Stay a fan of the Chiefs. Go back on NFL Plus. Get the subscription. It's like $100 for the year. Go back and start watching games from 2016 or 2015 or 2014 and go, Marcus Mariota caught a pass. He threw a pass, caught it, and scored in the playoffs, and we lost that game. Buddy, it could be so much worse than what it is right now. Our head coach is not the problem. Getting to a Super Bowl and losing for the third straight year is not a problem.
it's staggering. Like, guys, there is not one person who's responsible for what the Chiefs have built. It's all of them. It's Clark Hunt. It's Mark Donovan. It's Brett Veach. It's Andy Reid. It's Patrick Mahomes. It's Travis Kelce. It's Chris Jones. It's Trent McDuffie. The list goes on and on.
And by the way, that's why it's so amazing. That's why people are talking about it every single day. It's because it's for everything to hit in this possible way is unfathomable. It's unheard of. That's why this is the first time that a three-peat has been possible in the past 20 years, is because you have all of these individual pieces, all these stars aligning for this to happen. Like, Andy Reid's not 100% at fault. He's also not 100% to blame for anything either. That's insane. That's crazy.
Okay, but let me ask you this question. If the Chiefs offense falls short this year, if they're 15th or 16th in the league again, what happens? And let's just take out the obvious Patrick Mahomes, Rasheed, like take out the obvious, like people get injured, right? Because you could say that for 32 teams.
So what do you mean? Like, what's the aftermath? Or like, who are we going to be talking about?
If we're sitting here in late December, early January, talking about the offense just constantly struggling to move the ball again, no explosiveness, what happens? What is let's rewind that story. How did we arrive there?
I would probably say that the run game isn't as effective as it could be. And whether that's because Isaiah Pacheco just doesn't show that pop, or whether Kingsley Suamataia and Josh Simmons aren't working out on the left side of the line, I think that's where it will all start, because you see these teams playing two high safety coverages against the Chiefs at a record rate. It's something like 60% of the coverages that are run against the Kansas City Chiefs are two high safeties, which basically means there's not another person in the box. Right next to the line of scrimmage makes it easier for the running backs to run the ball. If they can't run the ball effectively, I think there will be a real conversation, and I think one that has already started, about Isaiah Pacheco. But I also think we'll probably be talking about that left side of the offensive line. And like, hey, guys, Brett Veach was supposed to have fixed this offensive line years ago. You remember the Orlando Brown year where we signed him, we draft a 3 interior, or we got Joe Thuney, we get Creed Humphrey, we get Trey Smith. Right side of the line was taken care of with Andrew Wiley, and then the left side was Orlando Brown. And it's like, oh my God, Brett Veach did it. And it's like, what's been the main issue since that happened? The offensive line has been bad. So I think a lot of questions will come to Brett Veach and be like, dude, you're supposed to have fixed this. Everybody said you fixed this. This shit ain't fixed.
Yeah, I definitely think offensive line is probably the place you start. And whether it be Simmons isn't able to stay healthy, Suamataia is a major step back from Thuney. And then, we go to the right side of the line too. Juwan Taylor's been no sure thing over there, right? Or Juwan Taylor's missed several parts of preseason and camp because of a knee that's kind of ailing him a little bit. You're on Jalen Moore, and Jalen Moore's not quite the answer. I've liked what I've seen out of him from the preseason, but I think really quickly you could be looking at a situation where, like, and obviously, again, injuries, they're the most obvious part, but you lose one guy to injury and one guy stinks, you could be right back where you were, where you've got like a less than satisfactory tackles situation, and then you have a worse interior situation because you don't have a Joe Thuney, or you got Mike Caliendo in there. So that's probably the next place to go, or the first place to go. Next place you got to go is just like the wide receiver pieces. I think right now, the Chiefs wide receiver room, I think if you ask Chiefs fans, they're probably calling it a top 10 to 7 unit in the league. And I think a lot of people outside of KC would probably call it like a top 15 to 20. And I think it's because we look at it and see the upside. We look at it and say, like, Xavier Worthy has a lot more potential because of the missed shots last year. He's going into year 2. But you can also look at him and say, he is what he was last year. a guy who's a chess piece that you can flex and move around and do all sorts of different things with, but he's not a guy that you can just filter your offense through. He's not a guy that you can do an AJ Brown type of thing where it's like, hey, my guy's better than your guy, and he's just going to go get the ball, right? And then you throw in the suspension for Rashee Rice. You throw in what Hollywood Brown did in the playoffs, which was a whole lot of nothing. Travis Kelce's old. Like, I think you can talk yourselves into the skill players either way. Tyquan Thornton hasn't done anything in the NFL. Robert Tonyan hasn't done anything in the NFL in years. Like, you can go really quickly from like, oh, Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Noah Gray. Like, we got all excited to like the skill players. There's a huge swing for them as far as upside and downside.
Oh, well, let me hit you with this. And I think you're on the right track, but I don't think that you've come to the right conclusion here. What's a deeper room, the wide receiver room or the cornerback room? You got Rashee Rice, you got McDuffie.
Yeah.
Okay, McDuffie's probably a better player. Then you've got Worthy and Fulton. Kind of a question mark.
The wide receiver room, I think, is full of more accomplished players, but I think the top end of the cornerback room is better.
Okay, and I will agree with you. But my point here is that if you look at what's going to affect the team more, and you look at what this team has been built on the past couple of years, not what we hope it is, but what it actually is, it's been the cornerback room, it's been the defense. And I think that if the Chiefs are going to fail, I think before we can say the wide receivers would be at fault, I think we got to say cornerback. We don't know what Christian Fulton is in this defense. We like what we see, but it's still a big question mark. Jalen Watson has not been the most complete player. He's been great. Don't get me wrong, but he is a player that I don't think you could put as a cornerback one on any team in the league and be successful. Trent McDuffie's a stud. We know about him. Noah Williams, and then like Christian Roland Wallace or Shamari Connor are your last two guys, or Najee Johnson. I think that if we see any fluctuation in Fulton, this DB room gets pretty bad pretty quick. And if we were going to, if one thing was going to hang us up this year, I would put my money on that or the offensive line.
I'll throw the last thing out here. It's not fun to talk about, and it's not something that anyone really wants to think about. But, a lot of people who are saying Patrick Mahomes is no longer the top quarterback in the NFL. There's some statistics to point to the fact that like the explosive play has really gone away, the average depth of target, all those type of things. That basically that is what he is now, is that some of the damage that was done in 2023 and 2024, wide receivers dropping passes, lack of protection, that it lingers. And we just don't see that same version of him. Now, I certainly don't think that was the case Friday night. I was very excited about what I saw there, and that looked like vintage Pat. So I don't think that that's going to happen, but it can happen. On the other side of the ball, you started talking about the cornerbacks a little bit. I think I was more confident when we started this camp that the Chiefs defense was going to be the better unit. But now I can really start to see the path where it can get a little bit scary pretty quickly. I think the linebacker depth is just not what it's been in the past. And I think, last year, Drew Tranquill took a little bit step back from what we saw from him in 2023. Nick Bolton has been good. And obviously we certainly appreciate him now after seeing Jack Cochran and Cole Christensen run around out there. But you're still relying on those guys to stay healthy because the depth behind them is not great. We've talked about the defensive line and the age of some of those players. You're either old or you're really young. And it's kind of like no in between. Karlaftis is about the only in between guy there. And those are, I would say defensive line is a spot that if we're talking about why this is a bottom 15 defense instead of a top 15 defense, it starts there against the run and in the pass rush.
Yeah, and I could see that as well. The Chiefs' defensive line is notorious for not producing a whole lot of sacks, in congregate. It's usually Chris Jones and then George Karlaftis with the cleanup and Dana with the cleanup. Part of that scheme, obviously, because Steve Spagnuolo doesn't like his guys to change rushing lanes and he likes to blitz a lot and send pressure and do all the things he likes to do on the defensive line. But dude, the criticism of the D-line talent for the Chiefs is not unfounded. Like there is some real question marks. Like, we love Karlaftis. He just got an extension, obviously a leader in the room. But I mean, there's a question if he's worth the money at this point. He's had a fantastic job, but is he that guy that can go out and, be the Frank Clark on third down in the playoffs where he just kicks the ass of some 6'6", 300-pound left tackle and gets a sack to stop him? No, it's usually Chris Jones. Now, Charles Omenihu has kind of filled that slot, but again, like he was playing a lot of preseason reps. He's not a guy who's seen the field for an entire year a whole lot during his career. He's not been super reliable, so that's, another question. And Mike Pennell has been old for like 10 years. I feel like he's been on this roster for half a decade or more, and he's been 35 the entire time. Like, he's not somebody that I think will stick around a whole lot longer. But, dude, I can see what you're saying. I'm a little bit more optimistic on the linebacking group, though. Like, Jeffrey Bossa has been a stud. Like, he's not going to be that guy that can stand up a pulling guard and, shed that block and make a tackle like Nick Bolton. But, like, dude, he is so fast. I think he can take tight ends out of the slot and be a good coverage guy. And if you read that room top to bottom, Nick Bolton, Drew Tranquil, Leo Chanel, Jeffrey Bossa, Jack Conklin, like, that's a pretty deep linebacking room.
We will refrain from referring to Jack Cochran as depth at the linebacker position because
Nick Neiman, Neiman, excuse me.
Ben Neiman, yeah.
But no, dude, what do you mean? He did okay while he was out there. Not fantastic, obviously, but if he's your fifth linebacker, come on, like.
We have seen certain defenses in the NFL get tanked by terrible safety play. The Ravens last year specifically, they had to move Kyle Hamilton out of the slot back to playing free safety to get competency back there, and then their defense started to turn around. But it was one of the worst defenses in the NFL with their safety play. I think that's the place I go to, that I circle as, like, we've talked about it countless times that Spagnuolo's putting a lot of faith in Shamari Connor, Brian Cook, and Jaden Hicks. Usually they've had some savvy veteran back there, a Tyrann Mathieu or Justin Reid. To me, that's a spot that, like, you want to talk about a great way to give up explosive play is just have people in the wrong place at the wrong time. We saw that in 2021. That was the year that Tyrann Mathieu just was like stone cold calling out Dan Sorensen on the field regularly with his arms up in the air. And that was probably the worst version of the Chiefs defense we saw for some time during a stretch there where the Chiefs defense was just giving up explosive plays. So I think safety is like one of those spots too. And, they have a veteran that's been in there and played good football for them. And Mike Edwards, he's not looked particularly good here in preseason. Keep in mind, this is a guy who played on like 3 or 4 different teams last year. So if Mike Edwards isn't close to what he was last time he was in Kansas City, and we don't have the depth of those guys, I think it can get pretty scary back there pretty quickly. You just don't have you might have a bunch of, like, average to slightly above average guys, but no true alpha.
So let's get a ranking here then. Like, if you're talking defense, what would be the number one? That's what we're talking about, the most likely. Because I would probably go cornerback.
Safety is my number one concern.
Safety is number one? Okay.
Yeah, because there's not experience. Like, I've seen Trent McDuffie be an all-pro. We've seen Christian Fulton be a good NFL corner. We've seen Jalen Watson be a good NFL corner. And then they've got some nice contingency plans with Noel Williams. I assume Najee Johnson's going to make the team, unfortunately. I didn't. I'm sure he's a nice guy. And then they even have some nice flexibility in the slot with Roland Wallace, who I think will make the team, and Shamari Connor. So I think they've got a lot of flexibility with McDuffie being able to play so well inside or outside.
So what's your number 2 then? Because I would probably go with safety. After cornerbacks, I would go safety.
Probably pass rush. That's just because it's so important. I mean, even if it's, like, let's say it's not putrid, it's just not great. Well, that just makes, like, a good pass rush makes your secondary better, right? Mm-hmm. It's really nice whenever you don't have a quarterback that can sit there and pat the ball 3 times. So being able to get quick pressures, like, that's the thing that matters. So then, like, I'm not very worried about the linebackers, and I'm not very worried about the run defense. The run defense is one of those things, like, you just can't be bottom 5 in the NFL and have like the Chiefs in 2023. I was looking at this because I was doing some numbers for Derek Nnadi. The Chiefs ranked like 28th in run defense DVOA in 2023, yet they were the number 2 defense in DVOA.
Yep.
It just doesn't. You just can't be absolutely awful. Like, you can't be giving up explosive plays. There are some teams that the run defense is just so bad that it doesn't allow them to do anything else on defense, but it just can't be terrible.
In the preseason, kind of tainted everybody's view on our linebacking room, I think, a little bit. If they weren't paying attention and you didn't know that Bolton, Tranquil, Chanel were not playing, you would be very concerned about our run defense. But I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be too awful. Linebackers would be last for me as well. I would go D-line and then linebackers, just based off the depth and the role that they play. I don't think linebacker, I mean, it's an important position in the Steve Spagnuolo defense, but I don't think that, if Nick Bolton isn't a top 5 middle linebacker in the league, that we're going to be just, out of the playoffs and not having any success.
Yeah. Okay. Real quick, before we get out of here, let's talk 53-man roster projections. These are done a lot. And, I feel like the Chiefs roster, there's about like 50 positions that are just locked in already. But real quick, let's just run through it. We don't need to discuss most of these locks. We'll start at quarterback, Mahomes and Minshew, of course.
Agreed. Yeah.
Right now, Pacheco, Hunt, and Smith, I feel like are the only locks at running back. Agree?
Yes. Yeah.
So no Carson Steele, no Elijah Mitchell. I think you're keeping 7 wide receivers. Everything is pointing towards that. The one thing that was kind of the wild card here is at one time you were expecting Rice to start the season on the suspended list. Instead, he's going to be active. That's Rice, Worthy, Brown, Royals, Smith-Schuster, Remigio, and Thornton.
I would agree. I think that Remigio has that roster spot on lock because of his special teams. I think Thornton has shown enough. Juju Smith-Schuster, another one of those guys that's just going to be on the field when Mahomes is out there because he's so reliable. And then Royals is your rookie. So those top 3 guys, there's no discussion. They're making the roster.
Now, with the tight ends, I think, Robert Tunyon's in ink at this point. Kelsey and Gray are as well. If you told me, like, if there was a surprise cut and it was Jared Wiley, I wouldn't be shocked. I'd be a little disappointed because that's just really early to give up on a draft pick, especially when he's fighting through an injury to get back to where he is now. But I think they keep 4 tight ends. They've kept 4 tight ends pretty often. So that already gets you pretty tight here. On the offensive line, you've got your starting 5, Simmons, Suamatia, Humphrey, Smith, Taylor, Jalen Moore. Mike Caliendo is probably your first off-the-bench interior swing guy. Hunter Norzad, Wanye Morris. That puts you at 25 on the offense there. Keep in mind you don't have any of your project tackles. No Ethan Driscoll, no Issa Pole. Yeah, but you've got 2 tackles, two backup tackles in Morrison and Moore, and you've got 3 interior guys who can swing around, factoring in the Moore could play left guard, Caliendo and Norzad. So you've got some versatility there. Going to the defensive line.
Well, hold on. I want to talk about that offensive line for just a minute. So do you really think they keep Caliendo, Norzad, and Morris? Because I could really see one of those guys, especially with the versatility of Moore, getting kicked down and keeping Issa Pole, who here's a statistic for you. Had 46 pass rush snaps, the 3rd most of any player in the preseason without having a pressure. So he allowed 0 pressures on 46 pass rushing snaps. I don't think that's a guy that you can send down and be like, man, I hope he makes it to the practice squad. I think he's going to kick out either Morris or Norzad, if I had to guess.
Yeah, and I mean, at this point, it's really about how can we get these guys to the practice squad. And we do this every year where it's like, there's no way we could get this guy to the practice squad. And it's like every team is trying to trim down their roster to the practice squad. So I think Driscoll's got a good chance of making it to the practice squad. Pole probably does too. Morris, a former 3rd-round pick who has started at the NFL and quite frankly never really gotten a shot at right tackle, which I think is his more natural position. I feel like there could be a trade for Wanye Morris, in which case that opens the door for Pole or Driscoll. But I do think they certainly keep Caliendo. I certainly think they keep Norzad and Moore's ability to potentially play guard in a pinch if needed. That helps. And I mean, I don't think we want to see this, but they also have the versatility of Suamatia, who's played some tackle too. I think they're very flexible like that too. And Norzad can play guard. He played guard at Penn State.
Yeah, well, and he's a center too. Like there was talk about him, being the backup center for a long time. So he has some versatility as well.
Yeah, I did write an article about that the Chiefs might could sniff around a Nick Allegretti or an Andrew Wiley, who both will probably not be starting this year for Washington. Both of them are owed a little bit of cap savings. Wiley is basically a 1-year rental. Allegretti is very cuttable after the following year. Allegretti's played center for the Chiefs before. He's played guard for the Chiefs before. Wiley's played guard and tackle for the Chiefs too. So they could also sniff around that if they wanted to, because it looks like Josh Connerly and Larry Tunsil are the tackles there, and they've kind of got their line set. So both those guys look like they'll be reserved. So something to keep an eye on. So that puts you at 25 on the offense. Defensive line, I feel like, is probably the most interesting position. So you've got your locks: Jones, Karlaftis, Dana, Omenihu, Norman Lott, Pennell, Gillott. Then it gets kind of interesting. They just bring in Derek Nnadi. You feel like he's probably making it. So that gives you 4 defensive tackles: Norman Lott, Pennell, Chris Jones, and Nnadi. Then you kind of have that spot vacated by FAU at edge, because right now your only edges are Karlaftis, Dana, Omenihu, and Gelati. So does Jerry Tillery make this team? Does Malik Herring make this team? My instinct would be that they could keep all those guys, including Nnadi and Tillery and Herring. If you're talking about who's owed more money, it's Tillery, in which case I think Herring would be the guy on the bubble. I saw the analysis of Nnadi coming back means they don't like what they've seen from Tillery. And I just think Tillery's ability to play on the outside some, and Omenihu's ability to play on the inside some, same with Dana. I feel like the versatility there, I feel like Tillery would probably get the nod just as the veteran who's owed more money.
Yeah, I agree. And we haven't exactly loved what we've seen from Malik Herring. It's not like he was a stud coming out of Georgia. I mean, athletically pretty good, but he was not one of those players that we were looking at going, oh, this guy can crack the starting lineup. And I don't think that he's shown a whole lot in this preseason either. I would probably give the nod to Tillery. Having that interior defensive line rotation is going to be nice too, with the Norman Lott injury as well. I think that probably factors in a little bit too. Let's keep an extra guy just in case. And maybe we can take some of the pressure off of him if his ankle's still bothering him, or if he's just a rotational guy like me and you think he is. Having another guy who can come in and eat the early downs is, it's a plus as well.
Yeah. So I feel like the defensive line room, there'll be some interest there. Linebackers, they can keep 4, they can keep 5. Sometimes they've kept as much as 6. Bolton, Trinkle, Chanel, Bassa are all locks. Then Cochran is, we've talked about him. He's kind of been a special teams blue chip for them. And then everyone's favorite Cooper McDonald, who's made a lot of noise this offseason. I think he's a guy that maybe they want to move on from a Cam Jones and keep Cooper McDonald. That could put them at 6 right there. Or maybe they IR Jack Cochran, who is playing through an injury. So I think you might get some change at the back end there. I think the question is just, is it 4, is it 5, or is it 6? Keep in mind, linebackers are just really valuable for special teams because they can do so much. They can block, they can tackle. That's not true with all of your corners as much. Any analysis on the linebacker room?
No, I think that you've got it nailed down. I think Cochran is probably that guy, although I could see Cam Jones. He was another guy coming in that we thought could really fight for that last roster spot, and I think he's done a pretty good job. He hasn't been the most fantastic linebacker, kind of getting reps late in the games as well, so you kind of have some questions there. But if you're looking for a guy to round out the room, Cam Jones or Jack Cochran both seem like capable people to come in and play those snaps in dire straits.
Cornerback room, you got your locks: McDuffie, Fulton, Jalen Watson, Noel Williams. Then you get kind of on the bubble here a little bit. Nazeeh Johnson I have making it, and Christian Roland Wallace. I think he's shown enough in camp. He's another guy who's him and Shamari Connor both provide slot and safety versatility. I think you just want that, especially what you saw from Shamari Connor in the slot last year. If something were to happen to McDuffie or Fulton, they kick McDuffie outside, I would at least like to have a choice of Christian Roland Wallace or Shamari Connor in the slot. That means Josh Williams is on the outside looking in. I feel like pretty much everyone is there now, but you just, you just can't say you see him on this roster after how this preseason has gone.
No, and it's obvious that Spags and that DB room has kind of lost confidence in him. Mm-hmm. Especially, man, just getting your head around. That's a big Spags no is getting your head turned around on a ball. He's very much play the man, not the ball type of DB coach. and he was looking back a lot. And that's why you saw him get mossed in the end zone for a touchdown. That's why you see him getting beat really, really late into the route. To me, Roland Wallace is a guy who I think could come in and again challenge for those slot reps. If I was picking, like if I was going to make a DB or a cornerback in the lab, I would probably pick somebody who looked like Joshua Williams more than Najee Johnson. Obviously that hasn't translated to on the field. So I would agree. Probably Najee gets the nod there. I could also see them carrying one more and it being Joshua Williams, if nothing else, but for the sake of his special teams. Like he's a big guy. He runs pretty fast for a corner. Like if you're looking for a gunner on the outside and you want to save some of these guys, like you feel better about that than keeping a sixth linebacker, then I could see that. But he's definitely the odd man out in that CB room.
And then the safeties, I feel like safeties are very easy to lock down. You've got Hicks, you've got Connor, you've got Cook, and you've got Edwards. That feels like the safety rotation is pretty locked. And then you've got your three specialists. So, I mean, really, I think where this comes down to is 4 or 3 running backs, 3 or 4 tight ends, 9 or 10 offensive linemen, 9 or 10 defensive linemen, and the linebackers. The rest of it all just feels pretty chalky. I do think, there could be some surprises as far as like maybe they put someone on IR. And again, this is about who can you get to the practice squad. So maybe they feel good about Cooper McDonald getting to the practice squad and they do keep Jack Cochran or Cam Jones. Or maybe they decide to keep Issei Pole because they don't feel good about him making to the practice squad. But that stuff will start to trickle out probably even this afternoon into tomorrow because we kind of organically find out who the 53-man roster is, and then they'll release it like Tuesday night or something like that.
Just something else, like just to give Brett Veach's dues here, there are a lot of teams that are, cutting players now to save on cap space. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case for the Chiefs this year. Like I don't think they're cutting anybody that, could be a legit cap casualty rather than, on the field production. So I know we shit on him a little bit at the top, but no, that's also something to consider here is how well he's done as far as handing out contracts.
Yeah. Answer a question here in the chat. What other wide receiver would you add after the Rice suspension? If Rice is suspended for serious time, like we're talking 10 to 12 games, maybe you start sniffing around a veteran just to add depth, just to kind of do some of the outside work like an Amari Cooper. I don't think that he's going to be suspended that long. I probably would not add someone. Now, if Hollywood Brown goes down for the season again and Rashee Rice gets suspended, then maybe we can start talk because I think that's where it starts getting scarier. It's like, all right, Xavier Worthy, Jalen Royals, Tyquan Thornton, and Juju Smith-Schuster. Like, that's where it might start being a little scary. So I think it's not staying alone with the Rice suspension. I think it would kind of just depend on everything with where the rest of the room sits. I feel like right now, if they were to be without Rashee Rice for 6 to 8 games or whatever that number is going to be, I feel like they're pretty well insulated to take care of it. But if it starts becoming a very long suspension, or if they start losing other guys to injury, that's where it can start being like, okay, well, this might make sense. Gabe Davis is still out there. Not really excited about that name, or really any wide receiver that's out there, right? If they're out there now, there's a reason. But for the most part, I think that they're pretty well insulated.
Dude, I think they could go after somebody in the division here. Quentin Johnson. I think that he could be a guy, especially if you're watching that Chargers wide receiver room.
I'm not sure that this wide receiver room needs a guy who is notorious for drops. I think
well, look, if you're looking for a guy though, kind of a vet. I mean, he's on his rookie contract, so he's not. He is a
previous regime guy, like which could be a candidate. But yeah, I'm out on that for sure.
There will be no
but he's a first round pick.
He's not even trade. But
he's a first round pick, so he's like making decent money too. So I could see Quentin Johnson being traded. I could. I don't think he's getting traded to Kansas City Chiefs. I'll put it that way.
I mean, I could see it. What about Jerry Jeudy? That's another guy I'm thinking about right now.
Well, he's got a real contract now. Yeah, I mean the Browns wide receiver. I'm like, what the hell is that?
Oh my god!
And what the hell are the Browns in general? Anyways, I mean they're going to need to get rid of him once they keep 7 quarterbacks. Yeah, I mean Jerry Jeudy is right now. I mean his cap hits $7.9 million. He's the 25th highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. I don't think you're trading for that guy. Like I know he looked pretty good this year with Jameis, but I'll pass. Like, I wrote about him. Trey Palmer. Okay, Trey Palmer.
Trey Palmer would be nice, dude.
He's buried on the not the Huskers. He's buried on the Bucks.
Come on, dude.
The Bucks bring in. They have Chris Godwin, who will return from injury at some point this year. Hall of Famer Mike Evans. They got a lot out of Jalen McMillan last year out of Washington. Now he's hurt with a neck injury. It could be a pretty big injury. Then they go out and spend a first-round pick on Emeka Egbuka, who sounds like he looks like God out there. And then they still have some other guys on the roster too who have played snaps for him. Trey Palmer, he's had times where he looks pretty good. Like, not joking. He's made some big plays in the NFL. Do I think that he is like a total, game changer? No, but I think he could be what Hollywood Brown is. I think he could just because he's run about 50% slot, 50% outside. Jalen McMillan, Chris Godwin. They brought in Tez Johnson out of Oregon. Emeka Egbuka, Sterling Shepard played real snaps for him. I mean, Trey Palmer's listed as their third string Z receiver behind Ryan Miller, behind Mike Evans. So Trey Palmer makes sense. He's a small, shifty, speedy guy.
I like that too. And Brownlee does have, I think, a voice here. I think we should at least mention his name when we're talking about.
He's a guy that I think belongs on an NFL roster, just not the Chiefs, because
he's not that type of player. But also, I mean, he's not a guy that you want, in the dog days into November that you want running legit routes for you as a guy who's not super experienced. And he's shown some stuff in the preseason, but again, he's just not that guy for Kansas City. Not that type of player.
Well, guys, however the roster breaks down, it'll be interesting to cover it. We will be covering it tomorrow with our Tuesday show, Tuesdays with Sterling. So join us on Tuesday to check that out. That's going to be it from us here on the Intangibles. Thank you so much for listening. No show for us next week as we will be celebrating Labor Day, a much-deserved holiday for all of our fan-sided staff. So we will be back. The next time I'll be talking to you guys will be after a victory in Sao Paulo, Brazil. So looking very much forward to that. And thank you guys for listening again. Check out our premium membership. Get in the Discord. We're going to be bringing back happy hours where we can start, getting together with you guys and Zoom calls and hang out and meet. You can get access to the Fantasy Football League. We're also going to be doing some giveaways with some jerseys and hats, other things like that. So get in on the action there with Arrowhead Addict. Thank you so much for listening and joining us. Thank you, Christian. And of course, thank you to Richard. As always, from us here at Arrowhead Addict, go Chiefs.